Hello there. Okay, another video about JavaScript. Today I'm just going to talk about some topics which I don't have a full understanding of, but I know how to do it in a basic sense. Anyway, let's start. So the first one we have is, as you can see, hoisting. So it's pretty much the way that JavaScript handles variables is it called runtime or compile? I think it's runtime, yeah. So all the variables or declarations are put on top. So what is meant by that is that this declaration, so every time that we declare something, or like we put a keyword which are, or like keywords which are let, var, and const, and a variable or a word after that, that would be a declaration of a variable. Then what comes after that would be equal whatever value we want. So that's how we declare variables in JavaScript. And we can assign a value to a variable or to something like this person before we even declare it. However, this only works if we used var and const, because if we use let, it will not work. And if we just run this, it will crash or it will not run because, as you can see, it cannot access person before initialization. Because what JavaScript is reading here is that this person is down here, and this variable person is not, or like is nowhere to be seen up here. Although its value is being changed up here on the very first line. And take note that the initial value for variables, if you don't assign a value to it, like it looks like this, it will be undefined, I think, or is it null? No, I think it's undefined, yeah. But if you use var, it will work. Oh, oops. Just need to type it correctly. There we go. Because now this variable right here has been hoisted. Because this var right here is not really globally accessible, but let's just say that the let keyword is block scoped and that it's only available inside of its own. So from where it started and then just inside of the block that it was declared. You just need to know what will make errors and what will work, and of course what's the efficient way to do it. Yeah, and if you try const, it will error out because, as you can see, we need to initialize a value. Oh, right, there we go. All right, so never mind for the const, I guess. Ah, right, I forgot. Const and let are block scoped variables. Okay, so the const and let keyword cannot do this kind of method, although it's not really advisable to do this. You should always initialize a variable first before changing its value or assigning a value to it. Excuse me, but it will look like this, like that, or you can use oops, that, or you can use let, you can use const as well. Always initialize a variable first. Okay, let me just, and if we run this, it will still be like this, because this is considered as the as like, oh come on, excuse me, uh, it is considered to look like this on runtime. That's why it's console logging I am on top. But this is useful to take note if you're just dealing with functions. So let's say we have a function, hello world, right here. And if you just console log something here, hello world, And if we run this up here, this will run properly. So if you just node hoisting, there we go. It was console logged. That's because this function, along with the keyword var, will hoist this overall variable, which is hello world, and this hello world is a function, or a function object in this case. It will now be available on top on runtime. It will look like this. But if we use a const here, for example, arrow functions, which is new, const hello world, the variable hello world will be a function, which is an arrow function. Now if we try to console log something, this should throw an error. There we go. I'm curious actually. Let's try to use the function. I think it's still the same instead of an arrow. Yeah. As long as you declare something with a const or let, it's not going to be hoisted. Alright. Function hello world. Okay. Now let's move on to the next one. And okay, so I made a function that will make us understand the difference between let and var keyword much clearer. Well, I already explained this before, but anyway, let's proceed. If we run this, this will throw an error, and if you have a what do you call this, syntax highlighting, as what we have here in VS Code, function will have color blue, name of a function will be color yellow if I'm not mistaken, and so on and so forth. You can actually see that I think that has a low opacity. Yeah, it has a low opacity if it's block scoped, or rather if it's not being used. Yeah, if it's not being used, it will not be highlighted, or like it will have a low opacity. So if it's not being used and we have a console.log count here, then what will this console log? Well, this will throw out an error because we cannot find this count right here. Oh, wait. Never mind. I made a typo. There we go. Count is not defined. But if let's say we define the count here, there we go, undefined, because it's getting this right here. And if we say let, I think this will still be used. Yeah, the function has access to this outside. But if we say var over here, well, it will still be undefined because we already declared it up here. But if we say var on top, I hope this runs. Interesting. So it always, oh, I also didn't know about this. It prioritizes the one already declared. If I remove this, what? Value the length. Let oh, I made a mistake. I always got used to looping arrays, so I didn't notice of this. It should not be a length. That's why. Okay, let's try that again. Count. One more. There we go. Goodness. As long as I is less than 10, it will return 9. Okay, good. Try var, or I mean let down here. And see that it will still return undefined. And if we say var, it will still return undefined down here. There we go. And if we instead wrote var here beside the count inside the for loop, this we get 9. And if we declare let, we will still get 9 because this console log right here is inside the function where the for loop is happening. I'm curious as well. I haven't tried this. Const. Yep. Oh, never mind. It should be initialized. Okay. Yep. This is inside the function. Yeah. Anyway, that's the big difference between let and var is that, well, let const and var. For const, it's immutable, or like you cannot change the value itself. For example, 0. And it should always have a value. As you can see, it gets an error if you don't assign it a value. So you always need to give it a value. It can be an empty string, find null, etc. Or an object, really. For let and var, you can always change their values. However, let is block scoped, which is, I think, is very convenient to use because it's predictable for me. As you can see, it's only inside the for loop. And if I want to access the count, I can just assign it like this. And then I can just declare the count up here. Now, this will still run the same way. And for me, I think this is much better. It's readable, I guess, because at the start of the function, we will declare the count. So that means this variable right here is being used inside the function somewhere. It is like the keyword var, really. Anyway, let's move on. Oh, wait. So let's say let here. Let's go block scope. Non-changeable. Oh, one thing to note if you're not familiar with const keyword, you can still change the values inside of an array. Like this. So the only thing that we cannot change is the array itself, like this whole array. So for example, we say count 0 equals we cannot do that. So if we console log count known variables. Oh wait, okay, should be like this. There we go. I really need to refresh my mind about this, but anyway. So for const, if you hover over it, you can see that it's type of string. So this is the thing, rather an array of strings. So this is the thing that you cannot change or that is immutable when you declare a variable with the const keyword. So from an array, you cannot change it or you cannot redeclare another value using the same variable name because it is declared or initialized with a const keyword. However, as you saw earlier, we can still change the contents of that array. Yeah. And we can also push something new. Hi. And it will still work. So that's just one thing to note about count. I mean about const, rather. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Now, since I explained asynchronous operations before pretty badly, I know. Man. Well, the one thing you need to know, really, the main point is that asynchronous operations are stuff that is done, let's say, outside or parallel to the current running task. So for example, while I'm sitting and recording this video, my mother is cooking something. And then after I'm done recording the video, she will call me to eat. So in that sense or in that context, my mother, let's say she does it every day as a routine, I think that I expect her, rather. It is expected for me to be called by my mother after I record this video. Something like that. It's a promise wherein you expect something. So let's say we have a promise of const call, or rather fetch something. So fetch, or rather the word fetch, is reserved in JavaScript, I think. Is it? Oh no, it's not. But there's a function called fetch right here. Anyway, so const fetch, I guess. Let's just name it get something. Calls to new promise. So this get something will make a promise to the overall operation, I guess, or to something that will call this. Is that correct? Call this new promise. Yeah. So this will make a promise and it will take in a callback function. So what are callback functions? Well, they're pretty much functions that you will call back to. Oh goodness. For example, I have a function here which is get data. And then we'll pass on the get data function right here, or rather reference that function. So that means this, since this promise right here actually gives us these two variables, as you can see, the resolve and the reject, and they are called the executor or the callback function in this case. We can put them inside of this function, which is resolve and reject. Now we have access to resolve and reject. There are pretty much ways for you or for us to handle errors. Now if there's an error, we can reject, and if it's successful, we can resolve. So for example, let's say we are fetching something from, wait, let me get a link here. All right, we have one code here, and we need to do one more step here, which is to actually turn this data into JSON. But for now, let's check this out. So this get something is a promise, a new promise rather. And inside that new promise, we actually have a function. But we want to, let's say, abstract this, or abstract, I guess. And just pass on a function itself, which is now called a callback function. And this function will take in the parameters that is given by this promise constructor, which are resolve and reject. Now resolve is used, or rather, resolve is what is returned by the then method right here, or as you see down here, and reject is what returned by the catch method down here. This is used for handling errors. That is why it is named catch. Catch any error that occurs. Now, if we run this again, according to what we saw earlier, it should still be the same. Should actually copy that. It's pretty cumbersome. There we go. So you can see we get a proper response status of 200. But we want to get the data itself. As you can see on the endpoint, it's to-dos and the first to-do available. Well, to do that, in fetching data, most of the time, responses come with the .json method. So that would result with, say, raw data. So we have raw data .json, and then this is also a promise, as you can see right here. So that means we also need to do a .then method right here to get the result. So by the time that this raw data has been parsed or converted into JSON, or by the time that we get the JSON value returned by the response, then we will take that result or data, so just say data, and then console log that data. And by any chance, if there's some kind of error that occurs in parsing the JSON data, then we just want to console.log that error. or we can also say console.error. Okay, don't use what do you call this, semicolon, because this is still connected. And if you notice, I just placed it at the next line, and this is possible because in JavaScript you need to put a semicolon to indicate that it is the end of the code line. That is why it is good practice to always end your statements with semicolons. That's why, as you can see, okay. So as you can see, we get an error if I put a semicolon, because this indicates that this overall process right here, this is where it ends. However, this has a period, which is not, yeah, as you can see, it needs declaration or statement. Okay, we'll talk about this later if you're curious as to why this is turning pink. Anyway, now if we just run this again, it's saved. Let's just try separateness. There we go. It's been processed properly. Now if we just remove something here, let's say something, an endpoint that does not exist, to just invoke an error, excuse me, we get empty. Interesting. So this endpoint returns empty like that. Let's run it like this. There we go. Fetch failed. So this is the error returned or caught by I think this is where it was caught. Yeah. So it was caught by this catch method here, and then it was rejected by the promise, or rather the promise rejected this call we made. And then it was caught down here. No, down here. And if you notice, it's very, very confusing. So this is, I think, it's what they call callback hell. So if we just did it like this, wait, like that, as you can see, it's somewhat turning into, oh wait, into a chain of callbacks. And let's say we have another process here, wait, like that. Let's say we still need to parse this data right here, or we need to perform another asynchronous operation to get to do, let's say, post this data somewhere. Then that would be a callback hell. Example data that then, and then an arrow function again to, let's say, console log some kind of success, something like that. And as you can see, it doesn't look good even though we added some brackets and some spaces. One more thing is we can actually use finally right here. So no matter what, even if we get an error or we get a result, this will run. So this is good for saying that successful, or rather, not successful but finished fetching. This is good for setting your loading states to false or something like that. Node there we go. It ran even though an error occurred here. Now, one thing to solve what we saw earlier is to use async await functions, or like asynchronous functions, and using the await keyword accompanying it. Oh wait, why did I remove it? Wait. We just have it right here. Remove this. Okay, as you can see, it's very clean right off the bat. However, we still need to remove this, of course, and change this to async. Now, as you can see, you just need to declare async beside the function to use async await operations or functions in this regard. For arrow functions, it will look like const fetch data equals. So if you remember earlier, we used something like this, right? So this is for arrow functions, or you can also say function if you like using the const keyword, and then just async right here. There we go. Const fetch data is equal to async function. And for an arrow function, you can just do it like this. Anyway, now this is very useful. So let's say we want to get the result of this fetch. Well, we just need to assign we just need to assign a variable to it, or initialize a variable, and the value of that variable, let's say raw data, will be equal to what is returned by this function right here. But we need to add the await keyword. And that's it. And now if we try to return that raw data, so we still need to parse this, all right, just like the one before. But if we just run this, get data, console.log, okay, wait, I need to put this aside. And this should also be an await. Oh. Set it. Oh. But this will return a promise, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, wait, type code. This one. Yeah, it's returning a promise, as you can see. That's why I was putting await right here. But I guess you can just run a function. Console log, I guess. Then we can console the log const data equals to await get data, and this is also an async. So one of the follow-ups for async functions is that it is also returning a promise. But anyway, let's try to run that. Console log. There we go. So we don't need to put an await right here. However, you should always remember to put the await if we want to, well, wait for this operation or for the function that we're calling to finish executing. That is why we're putting await besides this function right here. Because this function, when invoked, returns a promise, which is the async function right here. It returns the raw data, which is now a promise because it was turned into an async. And now we need to also wait for it to finish. And after it finishes and returns the raw data, we will assign the value to this variable data right here and then console log it. And now we don't need to wait for this console log function because we are not really waiting for it to finish, and we are not using it to assign, let's say, a variable to what is returned by this value or by this function. Okay, and for turning it to JSON, we can just say const data equals await raw data .json. As you can see, I have autocomplete, which is very nice. But now let's try running this again, and it will work. See how much cleaner that is? And you can also just actually place it down here, and we can just say get data and run it again. Oh, oops. It's still the same and looks much cleaner than what we saw earlier. All right. Now for the last part for today's video, is we have closures. Okay, I should close this and close this. All right. Now, closures are pretty much function inside a function, and the function that is inside is being returned by its parent function. As you can see right here, this parent right here is what is named print, and this function inside is what we call a closure. And now this is very useful if you want to just have a variable only accessible to the function returning the closure. For example, right here, we have const. Oh, actually, this should be a money printer. And this should be a printer. There we go. Where was I? I was distracted. Anyway, this variable name right here is only accessible inside this function named money printer. This is useful if you want to reuse the variable name and stuff like that. And additionally, this closure right here can use the variable or parameter that is invoked. No, I think that is being passed on inside its parent. As you can see right here, it's working. Or rather, I should actually run this first. There we go. It's being printed. Money, 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 money. Just like Mr. Krabs. Anyway. Because it looped through this 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. And this function is now equal to this. Because we just called this function right here called oh wait, this should actually be called money printer. How did it work? Oh, that's scary. How did it work? Oh. Whoa. So there's also such a thing as print. Yo. I thought this was only available in Python. Wow. Well, that was my bad then. Okay, let's try this again. There we go. It still works. Whoa, I didn't know that. I thought it was only console log. Wow. Okay. But anyway, if you notice this right here actually, so this is just called that. This variable is a function and it returns this. So this is the return value. And void pretty much means is that it has no value. And JavaScript always needs to return something. And most often if it's void, it means it's returning nothing. Just the void, abyss, empty. Well, that's pretty much the use of closures if you want to have an information privy or private to this function, or like for example this function is calling something, for example fetching from an endpoint, and then we just want to do something with that later on but not right now. For example, we call this, so that means for example this name is fetching something, okay, and then when this is called, that means it's already been fetched, and now it will be accessible inside of this function, which is this variable right here. And we can take that outside of this function at that time and use it anywhere we'd like. Alright. Of course, inside the file. I haven't tried it in an import export situation, but that's pretty much the gist of it for closures. That is all, as those are only the things I can talk about today. But thank you for watching and good luck on your development journey. See you next time. Oh, by the way, I am only a few months into, not really a few, about 7, into web development, and it took me around 4 months to fully, let's say, get familiar with HTML, and I've only just started with JavaScript, so always check your modules, or, well, the practice is the best lesson really. Learn from your mistakes. And what I've showcased here is pretty much just examples and a surface level explanation of those things. And what you need to know is how to implement them in the first place. That's all. Thank you for watching. I will be back to you with more stuff in the future. Good luck.